Okay. So, well, Joe, I appreciate you coming to come and speak with me today, and that you want to share your testimony of how you came to know Jesus and what life is like being a Christian in relationship with Jesus. And let's just start off. So, what was life like before you became a Christian? You know, did you have any sort of understanding of Jesus? Any interaction with church? What was it like growing up, really?
So growing up, I always went to Sunday school. Mum and dad always took me to Sunday school. Obviously went to a Church of England school. So we were always in church for, Easter and Christmas and everything like that. I always used to go with a friend of mine. Me and her, it was our little treat. Up until she passed away when she was 17. Every Christmas Eve, we would used to walk down to St James's Church on the Lone Farm Estate.
Okay.
And we would go to the Christmas Eve service. We would always go over the road for a bag of chips and we'd walk up arm in arm. So, yeah, I'd very much got, I knew about faith and I knew about Christianity. I did RE at school. I absolutely loved it. Learned all about the different religions, all about the different faiths. Ironically, there were certain places of worship that my dad said you're not going into. Thankfully, a church wasn't one of them, so I was allowed to go to the church, but other ones he put a stop on. I was 16 at the time. So we always kind of knew, we had family weddings, it was in church and things like that. So he was always there. But I really didn't probably have an encounter with him till I was probably about 31.
Okay.
And that
time.
was when quite a long time. I was going through a divorce. I'd got married for every wrong reason, every reason that you wouldn't get married. I got married for every reason. I didn't want to be left on the shelf. And kind of been passing ships in the night. We hadn't really had a relationship. I was out with my friends all the time and, basically living a single life as a married woman. That's what somebody referred to me as once. And I thought, you know what? They're absolutely right. I didn't want to be in the house. I used to go and stay at people's houses and different things. And it all kind of came to a head in about, it had been on and off for a couple of years. I'd go back to my mum and dad's and then I'd come back and then I'd been back again and then come back. And then it all came to a head in about July 2010. And I just said, look, enough is enough. We just cannot go on like this. There'd been a family get together, and there'd been a huge explosion between me and my ex-husband in the bar. It had all gone basically absolutely as it not wanted to be, and I just went, that's enough. My dad had to kind of break us up. Not very pretty, but I was kind of at my wit's end. And I just come home and just said, oh, that's it, I'm done. I want a divorce, that's it. So he, I think he thought it wasn't real. I think he thought, and he said to my mum, she won't never leave me. She's got it too good, she won't go. And then one Saturday night, at what time I'd moved into the spare bedroom, so it literally was done. It was just a case of going through the motions, who was going to have the house, who wasn't, we're going to sell it and all the rest of it. But I knew I didn't want to have any kind of any relationship like that anymore. It was been done for long enough now. So I moved into the spare bedroom. And we went out one Saturday night with some friends. that I'd known since I was a child, since I've been about 4 or 5. And they were brilliant friends to me. And they wanted to go somewhere, and I was like, no, I just want to go out on the lash. Can we just go out? I turned up in a pair of jeans and a pair of heels, and I wanted to have a party. And to be fair, her husband said, I don't want to go for a meal either. Let's just go to the pub. She'd come in this really nice outfit, and I was like, oh no, she wants us to go for a meal, and I don't want to kind of do any of that. Anyway, he must have known, because at 6 o'clock we piled into a taxi on a Saturday night, sunny Saturday night, and it was the 11th of September. Never forget it. 9/11, Saturday, 2010. Piled in a taxi up to the dog, on the Hagley Road. Your good old dog. Walked in down the stairs, and obviously we started drinking. You know, we were laughing, we were joking, probably really merry come like 8 o'clock, 8:30. And then I noticed this guy, tall, dark, handsome. All my life, where have you just appeared from? I've been in this pub for 2.5 hours and I haven't even seen you. And then he got 2 other mates with him. Now, in the dog, I don't know if you remember, there was where it used to be, there was like a little hatch, and there was a step. There was a step down, but it wasn't a step where you step down. It was about that much of a step.
Yeah, I remember.
So Craig's mate missed the step, come colliding towards me with a pint of beer, and it literally stopped about that much in between my feet. And I just looked up at him, and I was looking at Craig, not looking at anybody else. Craig's mate's like, oh, that girl's eyeing you up. She's eyeing you up. She's eyeing you up. And he was like, yes, I know she is. Every time I look, she's looking over at me. And it literally was a case of, let me get you a drink because you've kind of saved me. And I bought him a drink. I used to smoke at the time. It was kind of my way of de-stressing, so I'm going to go out for a cigarette, and he followed me out, and he came out, and we sat on the first bench, and he took my hands and he looked into my eyes and he said, you've been hurt. And I just said, how do you know? And he just said, I know you've been hurt. I can see it in your eyes. And I just then said, yeah, I'm going through a divorce. And it was just like, like gasp, because obviously he was a Christian. He then said, I'm a Christian, I go to church. And I kind of laughed and said, you go to church? And he's got this necklace around his neck. He's got this big, like this crucifix on it, this chain on his neck. From that moment, we then carried on down to the King's Head, had a dance. He said, I'm gonna. He went to kiss me, and I was like, no, I can't do this. I need my book, because I'd been reading this book. I've been reading this book of like 1,000 things how to do the first time, and it was like how to kiss after a breakup, and I'd been reading it in this book, and it was a bit of a standard show, really. And I kind of just like, I can't do this. Anyway, he was just okay with it. He was absolutely fine. And then we went down and we did have a kiss, and from that moment I was just head over heels in love with him. Craig had come out of a relationship where it was a real toxic relationship. She was Jekyll and Hyde, but I don't look at that. I just feel very blessed. She actually got killed in a car accident, his ex-partner, the day after Craig lost his finger, that's another story, which was kind of really spooky. Because I was like, yes, she's had your wedding ring, she's had your wedding finger, because, you know, it kind of really spooked me. But anyway, I kind of say to Craig, I'm really blessed that she didn't love you, because it allowed me to love you. And it was just really difficult going through the divorce. Mum was like, you get divorced. It was like a real stigma. It was just, not a good time. We don't have this in the family. Right, okay, yeah, but life, I've got to move on. I can't live this life no more. And Craig just introduced me to church. And we started going, and I used to go with him to his church down at Living Waters down in Handsworth. And it just went from there, and it was an absolute complete fairy tale. You can see the picture behind us. That's our wedding day. And literally, God just provided everything. He gave me Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, to give you a future and hope. And he's just delivered on every point. From the moment I met Craig to 2 years and 2 days, we'd gone from meeting, getting the house that was mine and my ex-husband's house. He just signed the house over. Just the finance was there to completely do the house, to redecorate it, to put everything in it we wanted. We got engaged. We had a wedding. Everything was there. God provided. We didn't. It was just provided constantly. You need money for a dress. You need for this, for this. It was just amazing. We got married on the 3rd of December. We had the beautiful. You're probably seeing that photo there. Look at the sun. Yes, it was cold, but it was just like a beautiful sunny day. Just God had got his hand across the whole thing. And then, like I say, 2 years and 2 days to the day I'd met him, I had Tallulah. I gave birth to Tallulah. So we met on the 11th of September 2010, and I had her on the 13th of September 2012.
Wow.
And it was just
amazing.
God had just got his hands straight through everything,
So just going back a little bit. So when Craig Craig introduced you to church.
Yeah.
So presumably all through when you were married previously, did you go to church in that period of time, and what was it like going back to church? Obviously you had all the, you were brought up in church as a kid and had a certain understanding of Christianity, but what was it like when you actually started going back to church with Craig?
So it was a bit scary, really, because it was like, how are people going to I'd very much got my mum's theory on church, and the fact that you were married and now you're getting a divorce, and I felt like I was walking around with this big D across my head here and pointing like an arrow pointing down. And I remember Craig saying, I went over, me and my mum and my dad's words over it, and I went over to Craig's house and I said, I'm really upset. And it'd be about September, October. And he said, come on, I'm taking you to church service. And he took me to BCC, which was where he actually got baptised. And he, we went in to this church service, and it's absolutely rammed in there. All these girls, like young girls than me, throwing their hands up, Jesus, hallelujah. And I'm like, oh my life, what on earth have you brought me to? Because I just didn't understand it. And it was just like, oh wow. Anyway, this guy was preaching, and he was preaching with his brother-in-law, and what they were doing a Q&A session, and it was a Q&A session about how the brother-in-law felt when he went through a divorce.
Right.
I mean, you couldn't have picked it any better, could you really?
That was the first service you went to with Craig?
That was the first service that I properly understood what was going on. I'd been to services, but I'd just kind of been there as his guest, and I wanted to know about this Jesus that they were talking about, and the Holy Spirit just came, and I felt like this presence here, right in here, and I sobbed uncontrollably, like proper sobbed, and they were just like, and Craig was like, obviously Craig knew the pastors and people there in the church, they were all really welcoming, they knew his ex-girlfriend, and they were just like, just the presence just went through me, and it was almost like Jesus was saying, it's okay, Joanne, it's okay. We were battling with, is this the right, Craig was battling, but God, she's going through a divorce. How can this be the woman you've given me? It's, divorce is spoken about in the Bible. You shouldn't divorce, and this, that, and the other. And Craig said, he was like praying and saying, Lord, I asked you to give me a wife, but I didn't think you'd give me somebody else's wife. It was a standard joke, he said, and he used to go and pray and say, God, is this the woman for me? He prayed that about his ex-girlfriend. And I remember him saying to me that the Lord had said to him, no, this isn't the one. It's the one chosen by me and all the men of Israel. And when you look at Jeremiah 29, 11, 13, it talks about the one chosen. But the Lord gave Craig Hosea, I believe.
Mm-hmm. The prophet Hosea.
Gave it like is it the wayward woman?
Yeah. So basically, God asked him to marry someone who was essentially repeatedly unfaithful to him, and he had to keep going and getting her back, and it was almost symbolic of the Lord's relationship with Israel. How Israel was sort of like selling itself to other things, to other gods, but God was saying, I'll always come and redeem you. Sorry.
Like I said to Craig, he said, but you were married, and I used to say to him, but you're the love of my life, and he said, but you were married, and I said, yeah, I know, but I didn't really love him. And I mean, how ridiculous is that? I mean, but it just goes to show that, and people say to me, do you regret it? That's a common, do you regret getting married first time? And I say to him, no, I don't regret getting married first time, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't have the blessings that I've had now. I've had to learn a valuable lesson. There's no doubt about that.
Mm.
However, I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't have gone that path.
Yeah.
God allows you to go these paths. Jesus shed his blood for all of us. He died on the cross. We're coming up to Easter, a real pinnacle time for us as a family, and for any Christian, but to do that, so for me, I mean, I had somebody at work, and she felt like she got the big divorce over her age and stuff. And I kind of said to her, as difficult as it is, you will come through the other side. You have to, if things are not right, they're not right, because you only get this life, you only get like now, we get eternal life, but you can't be unhappy in life. You've got to be happy. She went on to get remarried and have children, and it's it's been good when I kind of went through the divorce on my own. I'd got people around me, so I wasn't on my own, but I'd got Jesus carrying me through it, although I didn't know at the time. So, it wasn't messy. It was very amicable, none of that really. So, but it's just, you have to, those feelings that, you can't live unhappy, and I'm not saying it's just because you've not to be with somebody, but as a Christian, it's really important that you have a Christian husband, you know, a Christian wife. Because if you know, so many times I've seen it where they're not Christians and one pulls one way and one pulls the other.
Doesn't work.
You know,
doesn't work.
Yeah.
House divided against itself doesn't stand.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, it was really important. You know, Craig was a Christian, he'd been through the waters. You know, it was really important, you know. So for me, not only is my husband, I'm very proud of him, but God used him. God used him mightily, because if he hadn't have, if God hadn't have brought him there, you know, and he hadn't have been in that pub, things could have been very, very different. But God had got a plan and a purpose, you know. And at the same time I was asking for a divorce, Craig was on his knees begging for a wife. Not begging for a wife, so he praying for a wife. So it's just like, and it's only those times that, you know, we chat now and we're like, wow, look what God was doing. You know, you never know what God is doing in your life, you know. And sometimes people will say, no, this person isn't right for me because of this and this and this and this and this. And you look at all those faults and then like that, they're gone. You know, had Craig had not stood on his face and said, Lord, is this the one for me? You know, his mind in the world was saying, no, no, this isn't right, because she's divorced, she's going through a divorce, she's going to have this tarnish, she's this. What are they going to say about me? And then God said, no, she's the one that I've chosen for you. You know, and he stood on that word. So, you know, it's so important, because God has got a plan and a purpose for each and every person. Whoever knew, you know, me as the wayward woman, like I was, you know, it's a bit of a, you know, we go out and we go to, you know, we go out and have a drink or we have a meal, and so many times we've gone out and there's been like ex-boyfriends in there, and you know, it's just like, I'm crazy, like, oh no, not another ex-boyfriend, Joanne, you know. And it's like, I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry, you know. It's to the point now where it's a bit of a standard joke,
right?
You know, yeah, and it's you know, but I don't shy away from it. You know, at the end of the day, that was my life before Christ.
Yeah, he passed as you
This
passed.
is my life. This is my life now. Jesus shed his blood for that life that I had. And for me, if I can, you know, guide, you know, I mean, I've got a daughter, you know, you've got to get married because God gives you that husband. Don't get married for the wrong reasons, which is exactly what I did. You know, I was blessed the fact that God had got his hand right the way through it. You know, it could have been very different. But I think, you know, it stood me because straight away I was in a battle. I was in, you know, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, you know, you're a nice Christian and this and that. Straight away we were in a battle, you know, because obviously we were in a new relationship, you know, obviously sexual immorality, you know, sex outside of marriage, we're in a new relationship, what do we do? He's a Christian, you know. I mean, you know, I got pregnant outside of marriage, you know. All my life the church they were mortified. My mum was absolutely disgusted in me. She walked out the house. It was her worst nightmare. You're pregnant, you know, you're not married, and all of that. So that's really difficult, and I really understand where people are in relationships, and it's easy for people to judge, and I've judged and I've said, no, you shouldn't be doing it, you know, but that's not so easy to do when you're in that relationship, because it's the natural progression. But I admire the people that stand on their face and say, no, you know, we're not going to enter into this until we're wed, and you know, we're legally binded as one to become one. And literally 4 weeks after we got married, I was pregnant with Salula. So again, God right the way through. God gave Craig her name, you know, just all of it, every single aspect. I had a textbook pregnancy, textbook birth. I was absolutely petrified from the moment I found I was pregnant because I'd lost a baby. You know, I fasted and prayed, and, you know, I wanted a girl. Craig wanted a girl. We were blessed with a girl. Just everything that we've ever said, you know, we pray and fast. It's so important to have that relationship, you know, and she's a very special child. And I'm not saying that because she's our child. But we got a whole church praying when I was in labour. You know, John, she's got God in her, because she got, you know, Christian parents. You know, the other day she came and said, we need to do communion because we haven't been in church, we're in isolation, we need to remember what Jesus does for us. You know, she tells me she has these little boyfriends at school and they're not allowed to marry me until they're Christians. They've got to come to church. They've got to stop with this Halloween nonsense and Harry Potter and all of this. They've got to be baptized, and then only will I marry them. Oh, and then, yeah, Mum, you're paying for the wedding. Like, she's just, it's funny, but
She's got it right, though.
yeah, Psalm 22, you know, teach a child in the way, you know, the way they should go, and they will never depart from you. And I just see this with all of her life, you know. She's, you know, she has dreams, and she says, Jesus is with me, and I've got the school bully, she keeps having a go at me, and the devil was there, and just like that, they disappeared, and we were with Jesus, and he was saying, you mustn't fight with them because I'm with you, and you just need to turn away with your friends. You know, she kind of blows me away, but, you know, God formed her. Do you know what I mean? And just she is so much my biggest asset in life. Not an asset, but she's just my biggest blessing along with Craig. So, you know, I am so privileged and I am so blessed, but none of it, I would have had none of this without Jesus.
And I guess that's kind of the thing that strikes me, really. So you grew up in church, then you kind of went and tried to do things your way, you know, went and partied and, you know, did all the things that most people do, and, you know, maybe got married, as you say, because you just were so scared of being left on the shelf. And but kind of God had never left you, and then, you know, he redeemed you, didn't he? I think what you said, you know, you brought up Hosea, and I think that's quite apt, really. You know, he redeemed you.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just in so awe of him. You know, the way that he just uses people, a wretch like me. I mean, how can he do that? You know, but then I've been doing mentoring to like young girls and things, you know, because I think, you know, I'm really passionate about it needs to be instilled in the right age. And I think, you know, church, youth, it's so important that they know from that age, because, you know, from a teenage years, it's so influential. Do you know what I mean? And I've got such a brilliant group of people around me. You know, we were in a Christian church, but we were so in the world, you know, going off every weekend, doing everything we did. We take that, following them everywhere, you know, and I just think, you know, and you have boyfriends and this and that. But then I just see how some of them have just had catastrophic things happen in their lives, and God has been so good, and he'd almost like got his hand on the ship to say, I'll let her rock it a little bit, but I've firmly got the other, and she ain't going anywhere, because she's a, you know, he was adamant I was going to be a daughter of the king, and I am so privileged, you know, I serve the Most High God, you know, it's so important we get to our knees and we have that time with God, you know, and, you know, how you see things, you know, my perspective on life God gives me a discernment, and I'm like, oh Lord, is that you? And it just amazes me how he uses people, he uses articles, he uses anything to just confirm it. Like if I'm going on the train, he'll put like people in my eye view, and it's like, you pray for them. I ain't got a clue who you are, but God, you are. And to be that servant is just amazing. I just cannot tell you. It's just, it's such a privilege being a wife and a mother and a servant to the King. What more would you want?
Yeah.
Really, truly, I won the lottery that day. The day I met Craig, and not because I met Craig, but Jesus saved me, and it was bigger than a lottery win. So I feel, super privileged.
What would you say to somebody who maybe was in a similar position to yourself? Maybe they're going through a really difficult divorce, or maybe they once knew Jesus but then kind of decided to do things their own way, who perhaps didn't have a beer fall at their feet with
exactly.
with a Christian like Craig sort of standing behind them to introduce you back to Jesus. What would you say to someone who is in that position?
So for me, there's so many things you can do now. When I was going through it, and I'd met Craig and I was in the back room, I didn't really know Jesus at that point, and I'd be crying out, saying, there's more than this there, there's something there. I definitely know that there is. Just there's Bible apps, there's sermons that are on different church services, there's lots of people that are out there that are Christians. You must know them. Obviously the church I go to, we're always all over Facebook, and it's not just that church. There's lots of churches. There must be somebody there. Even though we're in lockdown and there are a lot of churches that are closed, some are open, just message them. Just for me, it's just having that connection. I would say 99% of the world have a mobile phone. I would probably say 90% of the world have an internet connection. They have it on their phone or whatever they have it on. If you don't have the confidence to just rock up and walk into a church, or to reach out to somebody, just say a prayer. Our God is with us. He's everywhere. He's all here. He's everywhere, and he's waiting for you. Just a little prayer. You say, "Dear Father God," our Father. That's how you start it, and then you just ask him what you want, and you end it. There's nothing too big. If he can part the seas, and he can get a crippled man up, and he can have somebody's eyes restored, there's nothing he can't do. He can get you through this. But what I would also say is, be prepared, because God knew us when we were formed in our mother's wombs. He knows. He's the Alpha and the Omega. He knows the start, he knows the middle, and he knows the end, and he knows which path he's going to take you. But you have to have that submission, which is the hard thing. You have to let him be in control.
Yeah.
And that's difficult, because as human beings, we think we're in control. And it's when we're in control, we make an absolute pig's ear mess of it. Catastrophically, it can go wrong. I feel, there is always a second chance for somebody. Always. We don't always get it right. Even as Christians, we don't get it right, even in our Christian walk. But our God is such a loving God. He's such a forgiving God. He's such a merciful God, that he will just welcome you with open arms. And if you don't get it right, we don't get it right. you know,
Try
you're not
again.
all, you keep going,
Keep
you
going.
draw a line to
Exactly.
it,
Keep going.
you're pressing and you go again. And, you know, there is always somebody that you can go to, always. You know, you've only got to go. I would say 95% of people have got Facebook. You know, but even if you don't want to reach out there, you know, for me, it's just a simple prayer to God to say, Lord, help me.
Yeah.
You know, just cry out. You know, and then you've got to have that obedience to not harden your heart, saying, I can do it. And it can't be a part-time thing either. You know, like 1 week you're for God and you're not, then for God, and then you're with him and then you're not.
Yeah.
It can't be like that.
Mm.
You know, if you want to see the blessings and you want to see your life completely transformed, you've got to submit it all. But that's not easy, because even 11 years down the line, I'm still learning.
We
you know,
all are.
we all are.
We all are.
You know,
There's no one perfect.
No, nobody. The only one perfect is Jesus, who gave his life for us.
Exactly.
So, you know, it's hard, and being a Christian isn't a bed of roses. It's probably harder. You will lose friends. You know, you will lose friends, but then you gain them, because as God shuts one door, he'll open the other.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and sometimes the friends you lose, you know, as much as you love them, sometimes they're not always good for you.
Yeah. And in other instances, he just puts that break there, you know, because he wants you to concentrate. And then when you come back, you're a different person. It's like, what's happened to you? You know, and I'm like, yeah, I've had God, I've had Jesus transform my life. And people are like, wow, you know, you're a different person. And all that glory belongs to God. It's not me. It's not any person. It's God only. And only he can do that for you.
Okay.
You know, he will give you the desires of your heart, you know, in abundance. But the other thing is, I will say, everybody has got sin. So he wants each and every person to get that cleared up. You know, he doesn't just dish out blessings upon blessings upon blessings without there being some work, you know, and sometimes it takes years for people, you know, but when you do, oh wow, just how he just excels you is just unbelievable. You know, it's just amazing.
Okay, thanks, Joe. I really appreciate you coming to share with me.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hope that your story touches, you know, at least one person, hopefully many.
Oh, I hope so. And look, if there's anybody out there, you can get in touch with Johnny, you can message me. You know, I'll always be there. You know, sometimes an impartial person, you know, somebody who isn't privy to what's going on. You know, I'd be there for anybody that needed it.